adjacent ones. After a few minutes, he took a long, slow breath and went back into the house. He tossed the hammer on the living room couch, then lit another cigarette and had his mid-morning drink. Later, he forced himself into the kitchen to grind up the 5-day accumulation of garbage in the sink. He knew he should burn up the paper plates and utensils too, and dust the furniture and wash out the sinks and the bathtub and toilet, and change the sheets and pillowcase on his bed, but he didn't feel like it. For he was a man, and he was alone, and these things had no importance to him. It was almost noon. Robert Neville was in his hothouse collecting a basketful of garlic. In the beginning, it had made him sick to smell garlic in such quantity. His stomach had been in a state of constant turmoil. Now the smell was in his house and in his clothes, and sometimes he thought it was even in his flesh. He hardly noticed it at all. When he had enough bulbs, he went back to the house and dumped them on the drain board of the sink. As he flicked the wall switch, the light flickered, then flared into normal brilliance. A disgusted hiss passed his clenched teeth. The generator was at it again. He'd have to get out that damned manual again and check the wiring. And if it were too much trouble to repair, he'd have to install a new generator. Angrily, he jerked a high-legged stool to the sink, got a knife, and sat down with an exhausted grunt. First, he separated the bulbs into the small, sickle-shaped cloves. Then he cut each pink, leathery clove in half, exposing the fleshy center buds. The air thickened with the musty, pungent odor. When it got too oppressive, he snapped on the air conditioning unit, and suction drew away the worst of it. Now he reached over and took an ice pick from its wall rack. He punched holes in each clove half, then strung them all together with wire, until he had about 25 necklaces. In the beginning, he had hung these necklaces over the windows, but from a distance they'd thrown rocks until he'd been forced to cover the broken panes with plywood scraps. Finally, one day, he'd torn off the plywood and nailed up even rows of planks instead. It had made the house a gloomy sepulchre, but it was better than having rocks come flying into his rooms in a shower of splintered glass. And once he had installed the 3 air conditioning units, it wasn't too bad. A man could get used to anything if he had to. When he was finished stringing the garlic cloves, he went outside and nailed them over the window boarding, taking down the old strings, which had lost most of their potent smell. He had to go through this process twice a week. Until he found something better, it was his first line of defense. Defense, he often thought. For what? All afternoon he made stakes. He lathed them out of thick doweling, band-sawed into 9-inch lengths. These he held against the whirling emery stone until they were as sharp as daggers. It was tiresome, monotonous work, and it filled the air with hot-smelling wood dust that settled in his pores and got into his lungs and made him cough. Yet he never seemed to get ahead. No matter how many stakes he made, they were gone in no time at all. Doweling was getting harder to find, too. Eventually, he'd have to lathe down rectangular lengths of wood. Won't that be fun? He thought irritably. It was all very depressing, and it made him resolve to find a better method of disposal. But how could he find it, when they never gave him a chance to slow down and think? As he lathed, he listened to records over the loudspeaker he'd set up in the bedroom. Beethoven's 3rd, 7th, and 9th symphonies. He was glad he'd learned early in life, from his mother, to appreciate this kind of music. It helped to fill the terrible void of hours. From 4 o'clock on, his gaze kept shifting to the clock on the wall. He worked in silence, lips pressed into a hard line, a cigarette in the corner of his mouth, his eyes staring at the bit as it gnawed away the wood and sent floury dust filtering down to the floor. 4:15. 4:30. It was 4:45. In another hour they'd be at the house again, the filthy bastards. As soon as the light was gone.